Welcome back to my channel Celebuzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. He's an internet celebrity sweetheart. The individual who voluntarily relinquishes his metro seat, purchases bikes for use by stunt riders, and secretly gives out millions to kids in hospitals without requesting, "I'm grateful." Aside from being a famous actress, quite the paradox, isn't he, that the usual Hollywood ego indulges. Amidst immersed in a web of high-profile feuds and betrayal news, Keanu manages to stay out of the spotlight that is. More than 4 decades later, in an business that devours its victims, he's the same meek spirit that causes individuals to stumble passionate about both the on-screen and off-screen worlds. On the other hand, it's possible that not everyone notices him in that manner. Why? Because this guy appears to make every effort to stay out of arguments with people, stays out of the limelight when he shouldn't performing, and who abstains from using foul language regard to any individual. Keanu Reeves has discreetly become embroiled in several unexpected, peculiar, and frigid celebrity personal disputes. The actor Keanu Reeves has also been spanned, and the stress level was high enough that their imprint, despite the fact that consider him indestructible due of his generosity, amidst the backdrop and the strained set pieces and competing character traits, situations found such tranquility. Then you'd have no idea, so that I may learn the truth about Keanu's rise to stardom. To put it simply, Keanu Reeves's name evokes a sense of tranquility. People have said he's the friendliest man in Hollywood, and quite a few real-life heroes, but it seems that even a single individual can tranquil and beloved by all, just like Keanu. Sure, Reeves has felt the heat from time to time. That is well-kept secret. A number of are quite tiny, while some are shockingly large in individual basis. However, the issue remains, why what makes Keanu's voice so unusual? Name involved in any conflict involving Hollywood. Reeves. Keanu Charles was born in Beirut, Lebanon, on September 2, 1964. He was born to Chinese parents from Hawaii, and his mom was from England. However, subsequent to after his parents divorced, Keanu spent a travel time between Sydney and New York, and eventually, he reaches Toronto, began to discover who he was. Keanu never was your average child. Performing poorly in go to class, fight dyslexia, and hop over the course of 4 separate high schools. And although the vast majority of individuals presume in which Keanu likely never participated, challenge, that obviously did not constitute case. Because he has difficulties reading, he failed miserably in school, and this led to his expulsion at the end at least one of his secondary schools. In an interview, Keanu revealed, "I was simply, I accidentally shot my curse out of time, and again. It was not often the best oiled apparatus in the institution." This implies that, while looks like Keanu is acting pretty submissive, he surely has some issues inside of him. However, when faced with the difficulties of school, at all times, there was a unique quality about he had. He exuded an honest, reflective vitality, and performing provided him with a means to remove it. However, he had to work hard for his accomplishment. He had very modest early performances. He obtained committed to filming a handful of advertisements, and perform in regional theater productions, but it failed way back then. That serene, mysterious allure attracted notice, plus in cases when, come to an end, and then his breakthrough, just now. Audiences were captivated with Keanu in 1989, when he portrayed the endearing nutjob persona in the animated comedy Exciting Journey. The movie received good reviews that include a well-known movie critic claim on the internet that Keanu Reeves and Alex all winter long. Snow is absolutely beautiful, silly, and astute enough to turn this frivolous adventure travel job. By the mid-1990s, the actor Keanu Reeves was famous. But what ultimately transformed his life had been The Matrix. Keanu changed his name to playing the role of Neo, transformed him into an iconic figure on a worldwide scale. Every single Matrix film caused a shift in cultural norms and transformed the life of Keanu. However, despite everything's status, but there was nevertheless a subtle change concerning him. His demeanor was disarming, average Hollywood star. Without moving a muscle, he accompanied by the most extensive group of people or with unneeded illumination. Contrarily, had dispersed a substantial portion of his profits from The Matrix to the cast and crew, purchased stunt riders on motorbikes, and steered clear of the social scene in Hollywood. Keanu had become steady, and the majority of individuals took note. Even inside the Hollywood industry and among his followers, he's perceived as peaceful, personal, and enigmatic, perhaps even. He refrains from avoid sensationalism, and the fact that he has endured some truly actual suffering and tragedy. he has miraculously to rise even higher from the ashes, compassionate. In addition, he has established a strong reputation as an excellent good human being. I mean, come on, the movie industry isn't necessarily associated with modesty, although Keanu is on par with his personal funds. Gentle, mild-mannered, and real charisma and genuine warmth are absent. It's just him going about his business as usual. Keep one's ego in check while doing it time. Crew members frequently quote him as saying, he is courteous, generous, and easy to get along with. Not to mention it's among a great deal of his admirers love him. Thus everything because of this, hearing his associated with any unsavory item. Conflicts over plot twists, and adversaries don't seem to. Hey there, Keanu. However, the reality is that the Hollywood industry is notoriously complex, and even the gentlest spirits can experience periods of friction, lack of clarity, and perhaps complete domino effect. With the best of them, Keanu Reeves and others like him have heated uncomfortable instances involving a few people working with him. Along with a long history of shining brightness and a vast network of associates, not all of his relationships in. Things had been going swimmingly in Hollywood. It is a handful of performers who have truly stepped on Keanu's toes. Moreover, a couple folks whose names appear here will abandon you, utterly taken aback. Kevin Reeves' face-off with Matthew Perry is my name. Okay, so if there's a single feud to the utter surprise of both performers, this is the one. That was not the case. There was no altercation that occurred on set fulfilled a position. Still, when Matt Perry cherished friends Chandler Bing credited Keanu Reeves with, everyone gasped. Because suddenly, Perry threw a huge shade at "Hey there, Keanu." And naturally everyone was curious about what on earth did Keanu Reeves do to this. Matthew Perry? In October, it all began. 2022, when Matthew Perry formally introduced a moving autobiography called Friends, and the Great Horrible Thing Regarding Lovers. Though the book delves deeply into Perry's struggle dealing with substance abuse, his stint on Friends, and the individual tragedies he faced. The experience was intense, heartfelt, and a plea for understanding. Yet hidden away in the text, on multiple occasions, the name of Keanu Reeves surfaced, and they weren't looking good. When the stakes are highest in the novel's subsections, Perry considered the unfortunate passing away of his actor pal, River Phoenix, whose demise was caused by a fatal overdose at the tender age of 23. Perry, along with others, as they worked together on the set of A Night, the 1988 biography of Jimmy Reardon. It was evident that Perry bore the burden of that setback for many years. However, his voiced their discomfort over raised brows. Perry penned the following in his memoir. The man within River was stunning, and away. Stunning beyond comprehension, it became apparent. For some reason, it's always the incredibly gifted individuals who fall. What gives rise to? Does that mean that pioneering intellectuals like River while Heath Ledger and Phoenix both perish? Keanu, do you think Reeves is still with us? The one that remains phrase landed like a blow. No one was curious as to his meaning. When he's the following, Keanu Reeves still walks among US. And the reaction was swift and harsh. An online frenzy of bewilderment and frustration. Followers on every side, include those of Keanu, Perry, and even readers who are not biased, found it unbelievable. For the simple reason that, well, Keanu Reeves involved in no way with Matthew Perry's addiction, bereavement, or sorrow. Upon his completely unrelated to River Phoenix's death. As a matter of fact, Keanu was River's nearest and dearest pals. The two shared the spotlight, a secluded area in Idaho, and were nearly together during that time. Thus, to have Keanu's name brought up in this deeply intimate and melancholy moment it seems so awful to be used as a scapegoat, particularly when it comes from someone of Perry, during his candid discussion of his own blunders and personal struggles. A large number of individuals turned to Reddit and Twitter to ask very same query. How could Keanu ever as Perry the one? Some people started to speculate initially, could be that Perry was merely utilizing Keanu's identity in order to differentiate, and that the phrase was only an awkward metaphor, although it was off-putting due to Perry repeated it multiple times. Truthfully, he brought up Keanu's name again. At a later point in the novel, when discussing the loss of a second companion, comedian, once again, Perry brought up Chris Farley with Keanu in a manner that seemed to be an pointless investigation. His sickness, he wrote, had made more headway than I had. To top it all off, I suffered from a reasonable dread of one, in specifically, an illegal drug, a worry there didn't give any. I punched a hole in the wall in Jennifer Aniston's bridal dressing. Room upon discovering this. Walks the walk amidst us. Behold, it had reappeared. It was as if no background information or reasoning Actually, that's right. Just one more attack on a man who, according to everyone, related in any way to Farley, such as Perry's sorrow. Weirdness ensued. The experience was unsettling. And it wasn't just the fans those who took note. In today's digital age, exciting, it was quick for Matthew. The realization that Perry had made a significant misstep. Not long after Pierce's memoir was released, and with the increasing resistance, Perry apologized to the public. His words were, "Keanu is someone that I really enjoy. It was simply pick a name at random. It was my error. I'm sorry. I ought to have worn my own name substitute." Some supporters, however, several people were still confused by this. It seemed to be sincere. Because if Perry truly cares about Keanu, appreciates, why not use his name twice, instead of 2 times in an insulting and nasty way? Whatever the intention behind the randomness, what makes Keanu special? For what reason not one of the several Perry, the Hollywood star, was unrelated Toto where? The speculation began at that point. Now I want to clarify something. Inauthentically. Keanu, he never addressed every comment in full in the ensuing controversy. In the absence of argument, not a single quotation, not even a slant peek during a job interview. However, that lack of sound prompted some to question if unspoken tension seemed to be present in the middle. If an incident were to occur, outside of public view and now that it actually the center of a furor, would Keanu stop going to Perry's house? Not everyone on Reddit highlighted the fact that Perry and Keanu had shared Hollywood social circles for several decades. The singular name, River Phoenix, that connects them was somewhat near Tobith Males, although in distinct ways at some point. Some even questioned if Perry was X had been driven by envy. Actually, some individuals did propose the idea Perry, who battled stardom and a high level of dependence among friends, maybe considered Keanu as an option, who subtly dealt with his own suffering without hurt feelings and embarrassment. Given that Keanu likewise lost River Phoenix, but he failed to publish spirals in books or on public display, he wept, kept quiet, and continued putting in time. Some supporters also thought that Perry, who was on the verge of death because toe dependency, may have felt unjustly considered, based on how popular someone is like Keanu, who exuded an air of serenity and deeply appreciated. Was it possible for that to have incited animosity? What, however, distinguishes their argue over who is more worrisome? The reality that while occupying the very same city, identical field, and even sharing a common source of River Phoenix buddy Keanu and Perry did not appear in any public appearances together in a location such as Hollywood, where additionally the quite a few hapless individuals wind up in the same at some point. Actually, that's not common while appearing nearly purposeful. A small number of fans started to wonder whether Perry had perhaps tried out for parts that Keanu obtained, or perhaps he simply despised the Keanu effortlessly receives admiration. However, admirers came to the conclusion that it was not a personal matter involving Keanu. It appeared to be more of a projection, one of Perry's hurt inflicted unjustly on someone who simply occurred to be alive and well. Plus, that's individuals were deeply affected because of Keanu not merely alive. Someone who suffered through his own tragic setbacks throughout gracefully moving from one place to another. And to remark that Keanu Reeves was more than just a carefree stroll among us line, it hurt. Furthermore, it was in odds with the perception that admirers held of Perry, who brought joy to millions in the night of Thursday. Next, following the expression of regret, in due time, the web became more tranquil. The work of Perry's book continued to do well in sales. Keanu will never proceeded with their lives. However, the event shown that even the most serene people still participate in confusing ideas. However, that wasn't that no one has ever complained about hey there Keanu. After that, he was dealt with by a approach that some could perceive as unjust. Francis Ford Coppola versus Keanu Reeves. Francis Ford Coppola in the early 1990s, the renowned filmmaker responsible for productions such as Apocalypse and The Godfather. Presently, among the most was preparing to star in a new film for an enormous lofty undertaking, while he was seeking to design a romantic gothic spooky spin on an old story. The Bram Dracula, by Bram Stoker. It was Coppola's whole history of risk-taking and painting magnificent works of art. Without his films, film alone. No matter how deep, they were, multi-layered and indelible. Accordingly, the moment he chose to revive Dracula for a big screen debut, the 1992 screen, viewers anticipated splendor, verdant beauty, daring elegance, and most certainly dramatic. To top it all off, specifically what they received. But there was a single item, a single fragment of cast members who didn't exactly mesh with individuals who have reservations, a small number of supporters, and ultimately, amid it was Keanu Reeves, not Coppola, who did it. Keanu Reeves had recently finished filming given Point Break's triumph and the likes. Charming, handsome, and the meteoric rise to fame that propelled the A-listers salivate. Nevertheless, the Copa found Flash by accident. While he was constructing a dystopian nightmare picture filled with gripping European drama and passionately using thick accents, Shakespearean gravity, and massive expansive performances. Regardless, the label aimed competent individual, and they settled on Jonathan Harker, the guy Keanu will play, a youthful attorney who visits Dracula's castle, only to find themselves ensnared in a terrifying nightmare. Was Keanu rocking that look? Without a doubt. However, the speaker's tone and timing, accent which originates from the United Kingdom fishers, became apparent. As Bram in the End, movies showed Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992. The picture was well received inside its own praise. Experts praised Gary Oldman for Hyseri Dracula. The one that Winona Ryder wore gave a chilling performance as Mina and charming, but sadly Keanu's. The joke got centered around the accent. The majority others said it had an awkward, strained quality to it, as well as highly unusual. Those who were critical noted that he seemed engrossed in the movie, as if he were translating chords into a different language. It wasn't, however, noticed by everyone. They kept bringing it up in conversation. A Strand Reddit users asked, "Why didn't the director criticize Keanu Reeves' performance as he shoots Dracula and hands him preferred guidance or recommendations? No matter what, I was wondering if the director or did no one see the terrible acting?" Later on, even Keanu acknowledged that this was not his finest hour. After attempting to trying his hardest, but he was never able to achieve mastery of speaker's accent, which is quite real and modest yet rather tragic, as he obviously knew the way out, know where he belonged. However, a great deal unsettling statements were not made by detractors or supporters. Without detour, they arrived by none other than Francis Ford Coppola. During an interview conducted at a later date, Coppola was regarding the picture and the actors chosen for it. Neither did he try to hide the truth, and he said, "We was aware that he had a hard time influencing a heavy British accent. He made a significant effort. Actually, that was the issue. He desired to execute it flawlessly while attempting. Tollbait it was delivered with an air of formality. I attempted to persuade him to simply embrace it in order to avoid with great care." A few admirers became rather uneasy about making this claim, and crazy guesses started flying around. ITI nearly thought that Coppola had acknowledged that Keanu was never considered the ideal choice for the movie, despite the fact that he never told it to. Also, think about it, when the effort that Keanu made for the movie, it more depressing. It was said that he studied dialect mentorship and made an effort to fully engage in the position. However, as the criticism started raining, it seemed like all that work had been for naught. To complicate things, Coppola is typically notoriously heated. He desired reality, dedication, and a degree of feelings that occasionally propelled performers outside their usual confines. Whereas Keanu, on conversely, is well known for clandestine, personal, and unsuitable formal who enjoys yelling or crying on position of authority over a large workforce members. Coppola allegedly pushed actors and actresses from Dracula, standing by requiring severe dramatic flare-ups, transformations in mood, and perform tasks that were not within those people. Insiders said that it seemed like Coppola tried to extract an idea from Keanu, who was still in the early stages. In fact, there was a time when it was even said the fact that Coppola had the other performers yell to scold Winona Ryder away from the camera inspire her to feel something as an acting trick of some kind. Ryder, she ultimately asserted that Keanu turned down the opportunity to be there. "It is why they maintained a commendable relationship, my friends." However, in the end, Coppola elaborated that an error in comprehension had occurred, adding that no one had been instructed to throw offensive language directed towards Ryder. The entire circumstance provided a window into the the high-stakes set that Coppola was running. But the fact is, that kind of the intensity level can influence how the set seems worse than a creative bootcamp working together. What about someone who, for Keanu, who really shines in parts where nuance and tranquility convey more than in other terms? It was a depleting atmosphere. If had they been an alternative actor, they could have voiced their disapproval of Coppola to a few shades, a retaliation, or even a protective quote. But being Keanu, he provided no such thing. Never in his life. Despised Coppola without ever pointing the finger against head of any department. In its place, Keanu owns the Dracula film from the start. The process of learning, a setback and a lengthy adventure, and a foundation upon which to build, likely explaining why supporters persist in supporting he had. Despite that embarrassing accent permanently imprinted on filmic memory, they understand that hubris had nothing to do with it, or under the influence of sloth. Rather than that, a young performer cast in an unsuitable part perfectly suited for him, and a filmmaker who failed to can assist him greatly. But suppose we disclosed he had creative tensions with. There were other sources besides Francis Ford Coppola, the suspense of Dracula, that there was more drama going on behind the scenes than one anticipated. On the very center, Gary Oldman was the eye of that gothic tempest. A brilliant performer, absolutely, but also a clingy power while filming. A Kutan Sapkota competing with Gary Oldman before to his rise to, in The Dark Knight, Commissioner Gordon, perhaps earned an Academy Award for his portrayal of Winston Churchill, with his previous role as a renowned actor of serious roles. Having a well-known for utterly losing playing their parts. We're referring to extreme stage performance mode. Upon logging on to perform the role of Count Dracula, he wasn't content with simply to don a cape and fangs. What Oldman desired turn into Dracula. He was dressed in custom-made crimson armor, long-forgotten languages, and reached an almost primal level of passion that energized the crew to extraordinary uncomfortable. Then there was the issue arose. Simply said, when you're experiencing life on set as a tortured vampire, quickly, things can start to get strange. And Guy's actions started impacting his colleagues in the acting company. Hey there, Keanu. But what really irritated me was aimed squarely at the youthful and skilled Winona Ryder. In the prior to filming Dracula, Ryder had already superstar, and they had grown rather close to be acquainted with Keanu Reeves. She embodied the one responsible for bringing the project to Coppola. The screenplay was presented to her, also had a hand in molding the ensemble. But while filming, she was paired with Oldman had frequent, if not violent, confrontations, understated manner. Later on, Ryder came clean in conversations that Oldman and I worked on Dracula was just too scary and pleasant. Details were not provided by her initially, but she did leave enough clues to claim that the situation on set became unpleasant. Rumor has it that several in the know in his story, Gary Oldman remained in persona on and off camera. Without fail, he pledged to in a role as Dracula, engaging with the ensemble unlike Gary. That could be perceived as unconventional acting decision, but for Winona was quite unsettling. In an interview, post-production interview, she revealed that enjoyed each other's company, having said that, identical following the start of the shooting. From her, I am unsure of the reason. Maybe. His method of operation is such that I felt like I was in danger. Word on the street was that fighting words, particularly when used in situations that evoke strong feelings of romance or empathy. The one that Oldman owns was so imposing and occasionally, to the point where she had to shut down distressed on an emotional level. As for Keanu, here is where subtly joins the scene. Quite a few, supposedly, Keanu Reeves was very shielding Winona from harm while they filmed. They were more than just pals, at the same level. They supported one another. And hence, the beginning of Oldman's method acting in an effort to spook Winona. Keanu supposedly despised of it. Sure, he didn't instigate any conflicts or debate Oldman, but he was quite explicit to all of his co-workers on that set be simply being there for Ryder, soothing and devoted. Actually, in some other, she admitted in the interview, I have the sea diaries, and I have recently retrieved on every recently. It dated back to around Vlad Dracula. Okay. The text is filled with intense emotions, angst. Kudos to Keanu. It is really appreciated. See Keanu, I'm gone. Given that Ryder could discover comfort in what a fantastic actor Keanu was, and that clever way that Keanu protested to individuals who handled Ryder in an unusual manner in which Keanu deals with problems in this way. There was no way he could compete the intensity of Oldman, but he lacked on to. Just by being himself, he managed to demonstrate his discomfort with the way developments were occurring. We also must not keep in mind that the movie was already a cooking pot with a pressure cooker attachment. Considering Coppola's confrontational approach to directing and Oldman's during Dracula presentation, the ensemble felt more like a battlefield than an office. In the midst of it all, Keanu had no choice but to walk a narrow margin. However, the fact that his steadfast devotion to Winona Ryder could have struggled with Old Man. And that's not all. It seems that Winona wasn't the only one who had disagreements with Grandpa. Considering that within the company, Francis Ford Gary, Oldman and Coppola both made debuts as well, during the course of manufacture, while Coppola was the film's vision, which was refined, sentimental, and all-encompassing. Nonetheless, Oldman, on the flip side, had his own conception of Dracula, and horrific, brutal, and tortured. Specifically, one apparently started while a scene in the spot where Coppola had envisioned Dracula making an appearance better, more genuine, and romantic. As for Oldman allegedly declined and maintained that Dracula was a monstrosity, not a human, On the contrary, he explicitly said that the character's true purpose wasn't love, but feed. It was the director's hope that he would dampen the effect. However, Oldman reversed course. It is said that Coppola lost it and a full-blown quarrel ensued. It became a major problem, forcing the two to take a little vacation from one another. This led to the Oldman versus Winona match, Coppola versus Oldman, with Keanu thrown in center attempting to maintain composure. Alright then, pretty about everybody can see how this were felt by Keanu. Chaos isn't his thing. He maintains a composed, courteous, and business-like demeanor, and all the while he was observing his Ali has difficulty. As he observes his producer diverge from his co-star and maybe acting out scenes that made them feel, he turned out to be emotionally destructive, or uneasy about, and maybe even a approach to the elderly man. Within farther, there was a resurgence of the drama in interviews, but in a unique way. Oldman is after admitting he was challenging throughout the time. In his mind, it was just being very preoccupied with his work and facing difficulties in their personal lives. On top of that, expressed regret for not taking charge things more satisfactorily. In contrast, Winona nonetheless divulged a more illuminating detail in promoting Destination Weddings in 2018 and Keanu. She gently brought up the fact that Keanu and she might have really got hitched while filming Dracula in a ceremony, as conducted by an ordained minister. "We actually got married in," she revealed. "No, my dear, I believe that Dracula in real life. We are married." Furthermore, Keanu himself in a separate interview verified breaking news by announcing, "We did a whole take during the ceremony of marriage with genuine leaders of worship." After Winona responds, "We are," he, I assume, according to what Coppola has said, "We are. According to God, we are married." Fans the wildness of it, but it served as a reminder that Keanu and Winona's friendship remained strong. Indeed, when asked about the possibility of joining, concerning the John Wick films, she remarked, "If it engaged in a great deal of daring, I'm like remembering the skeleton. Please, I would do everything you want with him, though. He is truly exceptional." And perhaps just likely that connection was partially formed in the midst of those uneasy Dracula moments, back when Gary Oldman's reputation was on the brink of just the right amount. I find it quite peculiar that an exceptionally mild-mannered somebody like Keanu Reeves was entangled in the collision of such robust egos and beginning utter confusion. One fantastic aspect, though, is that Keanu never resorted to open aggression. He merely his usual approach and dealt with it with subtle elegance. However, as you delve farther, a growing awareness that even the most serene spirits can be rocked by a storm, Hollywood in particular. But then again, what have an opinion? Who else could be in possession of a dislike for Keanu Reeves? Give ideas in the space provided. In the event that you found while you're here, please hit that like button, spread the word, and sign up for updates, fascinating movies, and unseen narratives.